As Pakistan continues to navigate through a complex and ever-changing political landscape, we are honored to have an opportunity to sit down with Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Mr. Khan's tenure as Prime Minister, which lasted from August 2018 to March 2021, was marked by a number of significant achievements, including the launch of the Ehsaas program, the establishment of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and the development of a number of important infrastructure projects. However, his tenure was also marked by a number of challenges, including a struggling economy, a tense relationship with India, and ongoing security concerns. In this interview, we will discuss Mr. Khan's reflections on his time as Prime Minister, his thoughts on current political situation in Pakistan, and his vision for the country's future. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Khan. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you so much for sharing your precious time with Batik Studio.
My pleasure.
Let me start back in 2018 when you first came into power. Mr. Khan, what were the largest issues that were passed on to you from previous government?
The biggest crisis was economic. We had twin deficits. The current account deficit, which is the external deficit, a dollar deficit, highest ever in our history. It was almost $20 billion, which was, never have we had such a huge dollar gap in our country. And second was the fiscal deficit. So basically what happened was, in the first year, the entire revenue collection we did, half of it went into debt servicing. So as it is, we didn't have huge revenues, but half of those revenues going to service the debts meant that there was nothing left, for 220 million people. So that was the biggest crisis.
Now, when it comes to corruption, we often hear about the big issues like private school mafias or like political scandals. But unfortunately, reality is that even at the lowest level, the average person in Pakistan is often the beneficiary of some degree of corruption. In a society like that, how did you try to fight the corruption, and do you think you were successful in your tenure?
Look, corruption is a symptom of there not being rule of law. And I'm talking about corruption in the developing world, which destroys countries. The reason countries are poor is because they're looted by the ruling elites of the developing countries. So this huge transfer of wealth takes place from poor countries. The elite siphons off the money to offshore accounts, to Western capitals, properties in London, in European capitals, in America. So what is happening is that the poor countries are getting poorer, the rich are getting richer because of the corruption of the ruling elites. So if you want to stop this corruption, there is only one way: rule of law. Rule of law means bringing everyone under the law. Now, problem with us, the developing world and in Pakistan, our law enforcement, our legal structures are so weak, and deliberately they've been weakened by the ruling elite so that they can take out money. If our institutions were strong, if our justice system was strong, then they would not be able to money launder from our countries. But because they take out money, they ensure that the accountability process, the institutions which would hold the powerful accountable, are weak.
Right. Yeah. So that being said, in trying to manifest those policies like the health card, how strongly do you think, how cooperative was the opposition party?
Well, look, and the second part of your question, did I succeed? Answer is no. Because unfortunately, I was in a coalition government, not strong enough. And then we had this army chief who who did not think corruption was a bad thing. And unfortunately, he controlled the Accountability Bureau, which was called NAB. So the bureau which was supposed to hold the powerful accountable was controlled by him. And he didn't think corruption was a bad thing. So I was ineffective in bringing the powerful under the rule of law. So therefore I failed. And that's why you can only tackle corruption and the powerful mafias if you come with a powerful majority in a parliamentary democracy. The second bit is about the health card. We had, the opposition, basically now when they've come to power, at least in one of the 4 provinces, we were in power in 2 out of the 4 provinces where we had the health card, which is universal health insurance. And unfortunately, already in one of the provinces, they've shut down the health insurance.
And you mentioned how the opposition party removed this policy once they came into the power. If you listen to the Western media outlets, the narrative around your ousted from power is that you were ousted because you couldn't deliver on your promises to the Pakistan's people. Is that true?
Look, opposition says you haven't delivered, you say you have. But there is only one way to find out who's telling the truth, and that is the Economic Survey of Pakistan. Mm-hmm. This is a survey on Pakistan's yearly economic performance. It's published annually. The survey which was published in May last year was published by this current government. If you look at that economic survey, Pakistan's economic performance was the best in 17 years. Mm-hmm. We overshot all our targets, whether they were revenues, they were exports, they were agriculture output, whether it was industrial production. Everything we overshot. We surpassed our targets. And remember, it was 2 years of COVID which we had to cope with. And in COVID, coping with one of the biggest global crises in maybe 100 years, Pakistan was considered the three top countries that coped with the crisis the best. So if this current lot says that we didn't manage it properly, just look at what has happened to Pakistan since we left a year ago. Pakistan is in a deepest economic crisis now. We are on the stage of defaulting on our loans. Our exports have come down. Our dollar intake has gone down, which is remittances and exports. And then not just that, industrial production. Half of our industry is closed today. Our growth rate, which was 6% in our last year, is down to 0.4% now. So there's unemployment. And inflation has broken all records in the history of this country. So therefore, the reason why the government is petrified of elections is because they know that whenever there are elections, people will really punish this government for the mess they have made of our economy.
My next question would be about overseas Pakistani. During your tenure, you legitimized the vote of overseas Pakistans. However, the current government has revoked that policy. What's your take on that?
Well, that's because the government is, firstly, they're petrified of elections, full stop. They don't want elections in Pakistan, even though, according to the constitution, the moment the assembly is dissolved, provincial or national, elections are within 90 days. So we dissolved 2 of our provincial assemblies, Punjab and out of the 4, Punjab and KP. But the government is running away from elections. They're actually violating the constitution. But what you're saying about the overseas Pakistanis, the government parties, this 12-party coalition knows that the overseas Pakistanis overwhelmingly support PTI, my party. And that's why they don't want them to be able to vote. And we're talking about almost 10 million Pakistanis.
And Mr. Khan, it is very rare for you to give a speech without mentioning youth. And as you know, and all of us know, that last year over 750,000 educated youth they chose to leave Pakistan in order to seek employment elsewhere in the world. This is nearly triple from 2021, which was your last year in office. So what is your point of view on youth leaving the country in current political situation in Pakistan?
Well, it's, people losing hope. And why are the young people losing hope? Because imagine in Canada, if your criminals who've been looting your country for 30 years are brought back into power through a conspiracy by the army chief. That's what happened in Pakistan. The people who were branded as crooks were actually resurrected. Their cases were deliberately, weren't pursued, which I told you before, that the National Accountability Bureau was about to convict a lot of them, along with the current Prime Minister. They were about to be convicted on billions of rupees of corruption cases. So that ex-army chief, General Bajwa, who was then the army chief, he protected them. And then he conspired. He is the one who started the conspiracy. And then he had our government removed and brought these people back into power. Now, these two families have been in power for 30 years in Pakistan. So bringing them into power, it has caused such disillusionment. And then on top of it, our economy has gone into a tailspin. The economy has tanked. So there's growing unemployment. And that's why you have this despondency and people wanting to leave.
Now, a little bit talk about your presence in the world stage. Throughout your tenure, you were very present at the world stage, and while you were in the spotlight, you were very vocal about your Islamic belief. We are witness of that at the UN. You passed a resolution to recognize March 15th as the International Day of Combat Islamophobia. And you organized the OIC conference in Islamabad, which was attended by 57 member states. Mr. Khan, why do you spend so much time advocating for Muslims in international media, and what responsibility do you think that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has to represent Islam on the world stage?
Well, firstly, all the heads of Muslim states, it's their responsibility to explain to the Western countries or to the countries where there is Islamophobia. Islamophobia basically stems out of ignorance about our religion. And Muslims living in Western countries suffer, some more than others, but there is clear discrimination. And especially after 9/11, terrorism and Islam was somehow equated. And, unfortunately, there was hardly any attempt to explain to the Western countries that the two are not connected. Terrorism knows no religion. You have these guys every now and then in the United States, they go into schools and kill people, or shopping mall and slaughter people. It's not because of their religion, it's just because of, whatever a mindset they have. And that's what terrorism, actually, a lot of it is out of political causes. People out of perceived political injustices pick up guns. So therefore, unfortunately, after 9/11, Islam was equated with terrorism. And there was these words being used as radical Islam and moderate Islam, which is all nonsense. There is only one Islam, and that is of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So therefore, because I knew the Western countries, I'd lived there, I understood their culture, their mindset. So I thought I should at least try my best to make them understand, make people understand that all these, through ignorance, these prejudices against Islam. And that's what I try to do.
Mm-hmm. And how is the current government, you think, dealing with this responsibility representing Islam in world stage?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think they even think in these terms. I think these people are just, the same type of, these two families have ruled Pakistan for 30 years. And they have brought nothing but bad name to our country. Whenever you hear their mentions in Western papers, it's about their corruption, of their lavish lifestyle or the London huge luxury apartments, money stolen from people of Pakistan. I don't think they have any bigger vision than just making money.
And Mr. Khan, we know the elections are coming, and your goal seems to be to get a two-third majority in the country. And I know you have a very extensive platform. But if you are elected, can you briefly mention what your main policy objectives will be?
Look, my policy objective would be the same as when I started my politics 27 years ago, and it was called Movement for Justice. Look, my experience of the world, of the developed countries and the poor countries, the main difference is rule of law. If you have rule of law, you have prosperity. If you don't have rule of law, despite all the resources, you have poverty. So in Pakistan, the fight is for justice, to have a system where the weak are protected from the strong. And that will liberate the people. I call it real freedom, because we got freedom from the British, but we have not got freedom from the system, the unjust system, where the powerful are above law and the majority of people don't have access to justice. So when you have a system like this, it kills the potential of a country. That country can't grow. So I'll just give you an example. I mean, there are 140 out of 140 countries in the world. Denmark is #1 in terms of rule of law. Mm-hmm. In the rule of law index, Denmark is #1. I would imagine Canada is very much up there. Pakistan, out of 140 countries, is 129. Pakistan's, despite all the resources, far more resources than Denmark, our per capita income is $1,600. Denmark's per capita income is $68,600. So prosperity and rule of law go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Countries that don't have rule of law, which is what we don't have, they don't attract investment. People don't invest in countries that don't have rule of law. In fact, your capital flows out of your country. You have flight of capital, which is what is happening in Pakistan. So we can't attract investment. Because of not having rule of law, we can't have proper democracy. Because our electoral process is flawed. Because, it is tampered. There's cheating in that because we don't have rule of law. We can't nab the big crooks because they're above law. They can get away with anything, so they plunder the country. And most of all, because you don't have rule of law, you can't stop corruption. So because you can't stop corruption, you don't have enough money. Money moves out of the country. That money can educate your people, develop your human resources, health, education, infrastructure. But you don't have the money because it gets stolen. So everything depends if a society can have a just system which protects the weak. The moment a system protects the weak, it liberates them. So people from our country, why do they go to Europe and Western countries and Canada? Because there is rule of law there. So hard work is rewarded. People who work hard and follow the law and pay their taxes are free people. They have nothing to worry. Unlike Pakistan, unfortunately, where we have a very corrupt system, and that's the fight, rule of law.
And now, talking about rule of law, Mr. Khan, why do you think you will be more successful at achieving rule of law in your next time, or specifically talking about at this time of the period?
I will only be successful if I have a very clear majority. If I have a weak government like I had the last time, which was a coalition government, then there's no point in coming into power because you will not be strong enough to take on the powerful mafias who do not want to come under the law because they're benefiting from a corrupt system.
And you talked about coalition government in the past and back in 2018. Are we going to rely on electables again when it comes to Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf?
Well, this time we've had in Punjab giving tickets, we've had a mix and match. Most of the people we've given are young people, people who have come through our party. And yes, we've given some tickets to electables too. But I think it's a very healthy mix this time. We've learned from our past mistakes.
I know we have talked a lot about policy, politics, and Pakistan in general. I wanted to end with a more personal question. Throughout your lifetime, Mr. Khan, whether it was with cricket, Shaukat Khanum Hospital, or now with politics, you have, from my perspective, consistently doing things that others told you was impossible. As a message to youth around the world, how do you stay motivated when faced with so much adversity?
Well, look, I believe that we human beings have been given enormous potential by the Almighty Allah. All of us have it. The problem is that we are scared. We are scared of failure. We are scared of humiliation. We are scared of death. We are scared of losing our jobs. And this fear is what stops us from achieving our dreams. Because, the bigger your dream, the bigger the person. Nothing to do with your education or the amount of money you have. It's got to do with what you dream about. And then and I always followed my heart. I never did anything that my heart did not want to do. So all my life, at the age of 9, I wanted to become a test cricketer. And I didn't care what anyone else said. That's what I wanted to be. And it was a passion. So I worked harder than anyone else. I had a lot of disappointments. You have lots of ups and downs. But I never gave up. And I learned from my mistakes. And I learned how to take the bad times. I learned the ability to analyze my failures. And I was better at others than analyzing when I used to go wrong. And then I would work hard to improve myself. So this is the only way in life you go up. And eventually I reached my goal. But then I never wanted to, I could have lived off cricket for the rest of my life because the Almighty had given me such a position and name. I never had to do anything from then onwards. I could have just talked about cricket, on television, and that's it. No, I wouldn't have had to do anything. But for me, life is, one experience, reaching one goal prepares you for the next one. So I always had more and more ambitious goals. And each time I used to try and do something, everyone said it can't be done. So then I would again, a lot of the time people would laugh at me, make fun of me. But I would keep pursuing my goals and the same principle. Be your best critic. I would learn from my mistakes. And then I would work harder than others. But never would I ever give up. And that's my principle. I never give up. So I don't care whether it is a threat to my life. Right now, there's a big threat to my life. There is this intelligence officer. We call him Dirty Harry. He's twice tried to kill me. Once I survived with the bullets in my legs. The other time, he again tried to have me killed in this judicial complex in Islamabad on the 18th of March. But that's never going to stop me. because I have a clear goal in my mind. I have a strong faith in God that life and death are in Almighty's hands. We try and be God. We take precautions, but we should never be scared of death, of failure, of losing our livelihood. Because as a Muslim, my faith is that we try our best, then we leave it to the Almighty.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that inspirational message and your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. That brings us to end of our interview, and it was a pleasure having you with us in Batik Studio today.
My pleasure.